It's day 8. You already failed. Not because you're weak, but because you didn't see the 7 gates that kill every commitment in the first week, and now those gates have already killed yours. But here's what no one tells you. Those 7 gates, they're not random. They're a pattern that destroys men at exactly the same moment, every single time. And today, you'll discover what Miyamoto Musashi learned at age 13, when he won his first duel to the death, not because he was stronger, but because he saw something his opponent couldn't see. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Saw Death. Feudal Japan, 1597. A 13-year-old boy named Miyamoto Musashi stands in a dirt circle. Across from him, a grown samurai named Arima Kihei, a man with years of training, a man with a sword. Musashi has a wooden stick. Everyone expects the boy to die. But Musashi's uncle had taught him something the night before. Something that would change everything. He said, "Musashi, most warriors lose before the fight even begins, not because their opponent is stronger, but because they walk through 7 invisible gates, and each gate weakens their spirit. By the time they draw their sword, they are already defeated. But if you can see the gates, they lose their power." The duel lasted 30 seconds. Musashi won. Not because he was faster or stronger, but because while Arima was fighting the 7 gates in his own mind, Musashi's mind was perfectly still. Now, 400 years later, you face the exact same 7 gates, not in a duel to the death, but in every commitment you make. Every New Year's resolution, every promise to yourself, and just like Arima, you lose before you even begin, because you don't see them coming. Gate 1, the dopamine trap, days 1 to 2. Here's what happens on day 1. You make a commitment, join a gym, start a diet, begin a project, and your brain floods with dopamine. You feel amazing, powerful, unstoppable, transformed. Here's the problem. That dopamine isn't a reward for doing the work. It's a reward for committing to the work. Your primitive brain can't tell the difference between imagining success and achieving success. So it gives you the chemical reward immediately, which creates a devastating effect. Day 1. You feel like you've already won. Day 2. You feel like you've already changed. Day 3, the dopamine is gone, and suddenly the actual work feels pointless because your brain already got paid. A neuroscientist at Stanford who studied habit formation for 18 years explains, when you announce a goal publicly or make a dramatic commitment, your brain releases dopamine as if you've already achieved it. This is why people who talk about their goals constantly rarely achieve them. They've already received the psychological reward. Musashi understood this without modern science. He never announced his training. He never celebrated commitments. He only celebrated after victory. Never before. Gate 2, the reality crash, days 3 to 4. Day 3 arrives, the dopamine is completely gone, and reality hits like a punch to the face. This is harder than you thought, more boring than you imagined, more uncomfortable than you expected. Your brain immediately starts negotiating. Maybe I should adjust the goal. Maybe I need a different approach. Maybe I should start next week when I'm more prepared. These aren't rational thoughts, eh? They're your primitive brain trying to return to comfort. Because on day 3, your body realizes, oh, this isn't temporary. This is permanent change, and permanent change is perceived as a threat to survival. Musashi's uncle warned him. On the 3rd day of training, your body will beg you to stop. Not because you're tired, but because change itself feels like death. Push through day 3 and day 4. That's when most warriors quit. A Harvard psychologist who studied willpower depletion found days 3 and 4 of any new behavior show the highest abandonment rate. 73% of New Year's resolutions are broken by day 4. Not because people are weak, but because this is when the brain's resistance peaks. Gate 3, the identity crisis, days 4 to 5. This is the most brutal gate, because it attacks who you think you are. You've been a certain person your entire life, someone who sleeps in, someone who eats whatever they want, someone who avoids discomfort. And now you're trying to be someone different. Your brain experiences this as a threat to your identity. On day 4 and 5, every time you do the new behavior, you feel like an imposter, like you're pretending to be someone you're not, and that psychological tension becomes unbearable. So you quit, not to escape the behavior, but to escape the tension of being someone new. Musashi's transformation required him to kill his old identity completely. The boy who was afraid, the boy who doubted, the boy who negotiated with himself. That boy had to die for the warrior to be born, and Gate 4, the first real test, days 5 to 6. This is where life itself attacks your commitment. You wake up on day 5, ready to continue. And then something happens. You get sick, a family emergency, an unexpected work crisis, a legitimate reason to skip today. Here's the trap. The obstacle itself isn't the problem. The problem is what your brain does with it. It creates a category called exceptional circumstances, and once that category exists, every day becomes an exceptional circumstance. You skipped Monday because you were sick, Tuesday because you were still recovering, Wednesday because you're traveling, Thursday because you're stressed, and suddenly you haven't done it in a week. Musashi trained in the mountains during a storm. When his students asked why not wait for better weather, he said, "The enemy doesn't wait for perfect conditions. If you only practice when it's convenient, you're not practicing, you're playing." Gate 5, the subtle sabotage. Days 6 to 7. This gate is the most insidious, because you don't even realize you're walking through it. Day 6 arrived. You're still doing the behavior, going to the gym, eating healthy, working on your project, but you're subtly sabotaging the foundation. You train, but you don't sleep enough. You eat healthy, but you stay up late watching video. You work on your goal, but you skip the preparation that makes it work. Your brain has learned. It can't stop you from doing the action. So instead, it destroys the support system for the action. Musashi called this fighting with a broken sword. You're still showing up to battle, but you've already ensured you'll lose. Gate 6, the comparison trap. Day 7. Day 7. You've made it an entire week, and then you see someone else, and someone who's further ahead, someone who started months ago, someone who looks like they were born to do this, and suddenly your progress feels worthless. You've been working so hard, and you're still nowhere near where they are. What's the point? Your brain conveniently forgets. They started where you are now. They walked through the same 7 gates. They just started earlier. But your primitive brain doesn't care about logic. It only sees you are behind, and being behind the tribe meant death. Musashi never compared himself to other warriors. He only compared himself to who he was yesterday. Because the only battle that matters is the one against your former self. Gate 7, the final temptation, days 7 to 8. This is the gate that kills most men, because it disguises itself as wisdom. Day 7 or 8 arrives. You've survived the week and you've proven you can do it. And then a voice appears. See? You can do this. You've proven it. Now you can stop. You've demonstrated discipline. That's enough. This voice sounds reasonable. It sounds like self-compassion, but it's actually the most lethal trap of all, because it redefines testing as achieving. You didn't commit to 7 days. You committed to transformation. But your brain is trying to convince you that proving you can do it is the same as doing it. Musashi's first duel lasted 30 seconds, but his training before that duel lasted months. He didn't stop after proving he could fight. He stopped after he became invincible. Chapter 2. The Man Who Survived the Gates. After Musashi won that first duel, his uncle said something that changed everything. "Musashi, you didn't win because you were stronger. You won because while he was fighting the 7 gates, you had already walked through them. And once you see the gates and they lose their power, this is the secret that separates masters from everyone else. Masters don't have more willpower. They simply recognize the gates when they appear. Gate 1 shows up as they see it for what it is. Gate 2 arrives. They know it's temporary. Gates 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, each one powerless because they're no longer invisible. A researcher studying expertise for 25 years found the difference between masters and amateurs isn't talent, it's pattern recognition. Masters have seen the obstacles so many times that they can identify them instantly and respond without hesitation. So here's what you need to understand. If you're on day 8 and you already quit, Now you know why. You walked through the gates without seeing them, but this time you see the gates, and seeing them changes everything. Start again. Day 1 begins now. But this time, when day 3 hits and your brain says quit, you'll recognize that that's gate 2. When day 5 brings a crisis and you want to skip, you'll recognize that's gate 4. When day 7 whispers you've proven enough, you'll recognize that's gate 7. And here's the most important part. If you survived the first 7 days, don't celebrate yet, because the gates don't disappear after day 8. They just come back in different forms. Week 2, week 3, week 4. The gates keep appearing, but now you see them, and a warrior who sees the battlefield cannot be defeated. Musashi went on to fight over 60 duels. He never lost, not because he was the strongest, but because he had learned to see what others couldn't. The invisible war happening in every warrior's mind. Your mission is simple. Stop fighting blind. See the gates, name them when they appear, and walk through them anyway. Because discipline isn't about never struggling. It's about recognizing the struggle and continuing regardless. If this video made you see something you couldn't see before, subscribe to the channel. Because every week we reveal the ancient systems that turn ordinary men into warriors. Until the next video, stay unbreakable.